Good morning. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Do we have any first-time visitors here today? If you would just wave your hand. Awesome. Let's give our first-time visitors a round of hands. We have any regulars also with us today? Awesome. Glad to see you back. Again, welcome to 1 Million Cups. For those of you that maybe don't know, 1 Million Cups is a weekly educational program in which we have two entrepreneurs come and tell their story about their journey. And what we like to do is give them 6 minutes to give their presentation, followed by Q&A, some questions and answers. And we encourage the audience to participate in asking the questions and allowing them to give you more information about their business and their journey. The hope is that we can connect them to more resources and ideas that will help them grow. So my name is Milton Jeffrey. By the way, I'm one of the organizers here with Kaufman. And before we bring up our first presenter, we've got a special presentation that we actually want to do for our founder, Nate. Nate, where are you? Nate, come on up.
So a lot of you know Nate Olson. You may not know that this is his last 1 million cups. He's leaving us and moving on to bigger and better things. So we're happy for him to get new opportunities and move forward, but super sad that he's going to be leaving the program. So, he's not just influenced our team here in Kansas City and all of you that are sitting in this room. None of us would be here, literally, if it's not for Nate. Like, people say that, but it's true. Like, this event would not exist if not for him.
What is that?
So we wanted to just express our appreciation for him. We've got some friends to help us do it. You guys remember John? He was on the original organizing team. He's kind of come to help us recognize Nate today.
So thank you all very much for coming out, especially the first-time visitors. You haven't really experienced the system yet, but I guarantee it's awesome. So I wanted to speak just a little bit to Nate, who he is and what he's meant, not just to this program, but also to the entrepreneurial community here in the city. So I showed up on the scene about 2 years ago, having just moved back from Omaha, and this guy greeted me with open arms and asked me to help be one of the first community leaders for 1 million cups. And at that point, we were having like maybe 60 people show up or something, but the vision was to take it, grow it here in the city, that it would be an opportunity for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, and this guy has really led that. So I want to honor him and say thank you so much for what you've done, for what an impact you've had on my life, and also not just here in Kansas City, but across the country. There's so many different people being impacted by the vision and the dedication of this man. So thank you very much, Nate.
Well, so we just want to thank you for indulgence. We just want to take a minute to give Nate a present, and then we'll get on to the real show. So Nate, this is for you.
Do I open it?
Hopefully it'll get you through your next 1 million cups of coffee. Well, yeah, you have to open it. It's a present.
I have to open it.
We know. Now you do.
Is it a Keurig? It is. It's a Keurig.
Okay, so we're going to get on with the show. So everyone say big thank you to Nate for all of his hard work. Cool.
So our first presenter that we've got coming up this morning is a gentleman by the name of Brian Carpenter, who has created an application for the iPad and for Windows developed for sales professionals. Brian is also happens to be one of the fathers of one of our organizers for the Tulsa 1 Million Cups. And Brian has also presented in a few cities now with 1 million cups, I believe in Dallas and also again in Tulsa. So we're excited to have him here. Brian, if you want to come up, if we could give Brian a warm round of applause.
Well, thank you. It's clearly a privilege to be here, and I'm sure most of you look at this with a little bit of mixed emotions when one of the founders leaves. But clearly, 1 million cups has made a significant difference in the entrepreneurial community, not just in Kansas City, but around the country. So thank you, sir, very much for kicking this off. We're going to talk about our company, 4D Sales, and we're actually going to be using the product during the presentation so you'll get kind of a sense out of it. We're going to start by clicking up at the very top in the 1 Million Cups logo. And the basic idea behind this product, it's an iPad and or Windows 8 tablet application that is designed to amplify the skill set of the sales professional. If you go back to when we began our career with the IBM Corporation in 1983, this is what technology looked like. That's a $5,000 brick cell phone that the guy in the bottom is using. Google we went to the card catalog in a library, and both Apple and IBM had versions of the PC that were just absolutely unusable. If you look at the technology that was used from a sales standpoint in 1983, you had these things called foils. They were these transparencies that you would write on. If you were really a hot shot, you were carrying around this 35 millimeter carousel where you could show pictures, and you would give presentations that way in this idea of presenting information in a very old-fashioned way. Well, if you take a look at how technology has not really advanced. This is Elon Musk in the 2014 Tesla shareholders meeting, and we don't have the audio on this, but it's laughable when you look at one of the most technologically advanced companies in the world showing this PowerPoint presentation in an old historic way. Well, the net of this is sales calls really haven't changed much in over 30 years, but buyers have. Buyers are more informed now. Buyers have less time to make decisions. Buyers have less time to spend with you. And why does that become significant? Well, if you take a look at what McKinsey has said, this was a report that just came out in the last handful of months, the single most important element in a business-to-business transaction or a business service transaction has to do with the sales rep themselves. This goes across all industry, it goes across all different parts of the world. That direct interaction between the salesperson and the buyer, whether they're in the consideration set, whether in the evaluation, or in purchase. And that is somewhat in conflict with what we have come to believe, that if you put it up on the internet, they will just come. In a B2B environment, that relationship is paramount. In fact, another study says that 85% of all buying decisions is made on that direct interaction between the salesperson and the buyer. And that's what 4D Sales is designed to address. So I want to show you just real briefly a couple of things about the product, and then we'll jump in the question and answer some of the applicability. If you take a look at the screen, if you take a look at the screen, you have a number of different branding opportunities. Up in the right-hand corner from a logo, the background is a branding opportunity, as well as the icons on the side. I'm going to show you a couple of templates that we have built, and in fact, I chose the Kauffman Foundation as a potential example, and we took liberties with this just based on the content that exists out in the market right now. But you see how you can brand up in the corner and down the sides. And I can put then in these, in each of these units, any type of content you could possibly imagine, whether it's a video, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's a spec sheet, whether it's a website. It doesn't matter. All of that content then is loaded then together. I'll show you a handful of others that are kind of interesting. This is a material handling company that sells Yale forklifts. This is Warren Caterpillar. You get the idea about how you can then present the particular image. But that's the basic fundamental idea, that we have provided salespeople every single piece of content they could ever possibly imagine. And with that, they then can present their products and services in ways they never have been.
When I first saw 4D Sales, the word that came to mind was wow. Truly, it was like the pages were jumping off of the screen.
You instantly can go to a solution for a client or prospect. That's the moment of truth. That's what makes this application so valuable.
It has brought a level of professionalism into meetings that we did not have in the past.
It truly does differentiate our company to our suppliers and to our clients.
When we first got 4D, we had a guy go to Woodward, and he sold a $250,000 job that first time using 4D sales. You know, and he had had a tutorial on it of about 5 minutes.
We actually loaded up the pilot with some skeptics. And what's been amazing is those people have came back and made quotes like, you know, we know that the reason we got this business was because of 4D sales. We are convinced that we otherwise would not have gotten the business.
And nothing is sweeter than your customers telling you that what you do works. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. So what we'd like to do now is open it up to the audience for some questions and answers. And Brian, if I could start with one, can you tell us a little bit about your marketing strategy for your client base?
The marketing strategy? Well, again, if you look at Mike Ishmael is in the back and Doug Tatum, our partners and founders of 4D Sales, we all grew up in the IBM environment. That was our very first job out of school in grad school. IBM spent a tremendous amount of time on training their salespeople. As a matter of fact, we were in school for the very first year of our existence. And believe it or not, I'll get to the marketing side of this. We ended up with this training and this philosophy that is very solution-based in how you go about dealing with a customer. And so when we start to look at marketing in the purest of sense, we have a couple of things that we have found have worked very well, and a couple of things that are just absolutely not worth much at all. And the marketing side has primarily been, that's worked extraordinarily well, has been referrals from customers who say, hey, I want you then to go meet this person. What has not worked worth a darn is certain amount of online media, whether it was keywords we bought from LinkedIn, whether it was some of the blog type things that we've done. They've been very, very spotty. And it makes sense when you think about it, because in our market, you are in a B2B or a business to service market, that relationship between you and the person who is buying is paramount. Transactions will not take place without that interaction. So we're doing all what I would just call the traditional things that we've done. We've got the new website, we've got things that are going out, but the single most effective thing that happens has been through referrals.
Brian, we got a question to your right.
Hi, Brian. How much does it cost?
$40 a month. And here's the conversation that we have. We meet primarily with owners of companies or the head of sales or marketing. And the question always is, well, how much does this thing cost? And we ask this question. If your reps had all the content, had the structure in place, can your reps sell one incremental deal per year? Just one. And the answer is always yes. And then our second question is, okay, and what's the gross margin on that? And they, typically gross margins are in that 40 to 60% range. And they say, oh, it's this. And our response back is, you just justified. You more than justified the application just by one incremental transaction a year. That has nothing to do then with reduction in print cost, 1,000 other different components on the cost saving side.
Got a question here on your left.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, does it work on a laptop with touchscreen or just a little?
Yeah, we have these hybrid things now, but it's Windows 8 Touch. It works, and so we have it on Surface, we have it on this little HP thing, the T.D. Williamson is using that, but it's Windows 8 Touch.
Brian, I've got a question for you. Who is your perfect target customer to use this service?
Anyone who wants to grow revenue. I mean, that's kind of a flippant answer, but anyone who has content that they want to show and tell a story. And one of the things that we have found is most marketing material is never used. 80% of all marketing material is never used. So why would you create it? Why wouldn't that be in the hands of salespeople? So anyone who has a story to sell, clearly manufacturing, distribution, and services are big, big client opportunities for us. Nonprofits as well.
Question in the back.
Exactly what do you get for the $40 a month? For instance, do you help program the material to be used in the app?
The answer is yes, and I'll give you a quick example. And I think we've got, this was Bernstein Rain. Bernstein Rain is an advertising agency here in Kansas City. They are not a client of ours. I do not want to misrepresent that. But we had shown Bernstein, for example, how they might be able to use this. What we ended up doing is we took a lot of their content and built both the template and added content into this on their own. So if you look here up in the down the side, these are all just different categories. When I touch one of the categories, this particular one happened to be when they did the launch of the Hostess Twinkie. I don't know if you knew that Bernstein was the agency of record that brought the Twinkie back to life. But they have an incredible story around how they've taken that product and how they were able to introduce it. So the answer to your question is we help them load, we help them build, and we help them strategize. We do not build content for them. There are agencies and there are creative people who will build content, but we will provide a template, and obviously based on the size of the company is the amount of time and effort we can put into the design and build. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I got a question to your right.
Can you tell us a little bit more of your personal backstory, how the idea came up, and then what it was like actually developing this, and if you developed it or working with developers?
And the story is this. I mean, all of us have been on the revenue side of a business our entire careers, Doug, Mike, and I. I think I told you, we started with IBM way back when. And the revenue side of a business to us is the great side. And we all had different jobs in different companies. The last one that I was part of, I was the vice president of sales, advertising, and marketing and internet distribution for the Dollar Thrifty company. And the thing that we saw, that we've always seen, is that companies typically on the revenue side are pretty good at developing a strategy, and they try to put skills around their salespeople. But they do a terrible job of providing an actual tool for the salesperson to use when they're in that moment of truth. So Mike came to me, probably two and a half years ago, and said, we've got a convergence of things happening. Mobile is happening, and the tablets are happening in such a way that I can put content together and build a tool for salespeople. So we prototyped something about 2 years ago. We then funded, after about 6 or 7 iterations, funded a design and then started building and sold. But it's all focused on the revenue side of a company.
Got another question here on your left.
Yeah, so who do you consider your competitors, or what are you trying to add for the salesperson's existing book of tools?
Most of you all are familiar with a CRM. Are most of you all familiar with CRM systems, customer relationship? That's primarily a management tool. It doesn't help anything in that moment of truth. What 4D does is it allows for a rep to carry with them every single piece of content they could ever possibly need or use. You know, in the old days with IBM, we'd have our trunks filled with just binders of different folders, different not spreadsheets, but different content sheets and so on. This puts it all in the hands of the sales rep resident on the tablet or the iPad. So they can, in the dance, they can go anywhere the customer wants to go. So for example, how many of you all have been in on a sales call and the customer takes you to a place that you weren't prepared for? Well, if you've ever sold, the answer is 100% of you have. And this allows you to dance that way. We got a response from a company called Medley Materials, and he sent a note over and he said, I'm with a client. And he starts talking about something I had no plans to talk about. But I had a video of exactly what he wanted. And so I showed it, a 30-second video. And now I'm going to get an order for a couple $100,000 worth of stuff. He could have never done that. And every time you don't answer what a customer wants, you've just delayed the sales cycle and you have increased the likelihood you are not going to close that deal.
Question back left.
Yes.
So Brian, I was going to ask you about back office stuff, and you answered that question, and this gentleman up here asked about your competition.
I'm predictive.
So you've answered that, but how are you going to market? You're going to sell to salesmen, and they're not necessarily early adopters of technology.
We actually sell to the companies who are making tremendous investments in their salespeople, who understand that sales cycles are having to be closed, who are putting tremendous pressure on the marketing departments to put content in the hands of salespeople. When we're selling to the CEO, owner, or the head of sales, the adoption rate is very high. When you sell to the individual salesperson, that's the last thing they want is to deal with technology, because I already deal with CRM, and we all know how fun that is.
Brian, we got a question here in the front.
Yes. Yes, sir.
It sounds like all of your partners are from a sales background. I may interpret that. So how did you actually develop the tool? I mean, did you outsource?
Well, Mike has, and I don't even see him now. Oh, there he is. Mike actually has, his degree is in computer science. He did the design. He does what I would just call the rational test. And then we have some of the best developers we can find who actually do the content, but he oversees all of it. He talks a language that Doug and I just simply don't understand. We hire the developers, that's correct.
Got a question here on your
Yes.
left.
Yeah, I was wondering, how many customers or clients do you currently have, and what is your retention rate with the subscriptions that you have?
What are we at, 80-some companies, 86? We'll call it 80-plus customers. The retention rate right now is 100%. We haven't been around long enough to get fired. So I don't expect us to keep that, and we've got hundreds of people. Our largest customer has 150 reps. You all remember the lady that said, we had a guy go to Woodward and close a $250,000 deal. She owns a landscaping company, a high-end landscaping company. They have 3 people. And so we have this range of very small to pretty large.
Question your left.
Uh-huh.
How does this work in a remote sales environment, and how do you feel like this could shape the remote sales landscape?
When you say remote, we think of that as not having access to any type of internet access. Is that what you mean? Oh, yeah, and again, without getting into the product, how we end up distributing the content of 4D, one of the other things that is brilliant about this is every salesperson at the exact same moment in time has the exact same content, so you have a continuity of what's being sold. It is not designed to be, I don't know what's called a Skype-type interaction. It is so that you as the salesperson have, no matter where you are, if you're in the middle of an oil field or if you're in a conference room that has Wi-Fi blocked, or if you're on an airplane, you have everything you could ever possibly need right there. Yes?
Brian, I got a question to you, right?
Earlier you were talking about that there's $40 per app. Is there any limitations if they have 10 reps or 1,000 reps? Or
if you have 1,000, we'll charge you less than $40 a month. But no, there's no limitation. In fact, when we leave here today, we have a meeting with Sprint this afternoon, and I think in the one division they have I think it's a little over 5,000 reps. So our pricing, I mean, again, you guys are just like us. You know, you're new and you dream of some amazing things, but from a technology standpoint, no limits on the number of reps, none.
So 40 is still negotiable based on the number of reps, like,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
absolutely. Absolutely it is.
Got a question here in the
Yes,
middle.
sir.
So after this, after the sales rep makes the pitch to the potential client, does the client get to keep the content?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Boy, I love straight people. In this regard, can you all see this here? We have this email function that no matter what that content is, let's say that Bernstein was out and they wanted to send this piece of content. I tap on it, and I've got this email function. All the content jumps up. You see the little check mark up in the corner? I want to email that. Let's say I want to email Cake Face, and I'm going to compose an email. And you see well, there was a little counter down here. There was 2 pieces, and then I can send it out. One of the neat things that happens when you're in a remote location is, obviously I need to have Wi-Fi access to send it out. It just doesn't send it automatically. But it will capture that and it'll hold it until you do have then Wi-Fi access, and then off it goes. So again, our goal here was to make it as simple as possible. Mike did an amazing job of building technology to make it simple. It's very complex on the backside, but to the rep, and all of us who've ever been reps, hate technology, hate having to learn something new. We've made it extraordinarily simple to use.
Got a question here in the front.
What's your cost per rep to get them set up on the application, and what's your profit margin?
This is, the cost for us to set it up is, well, I don't even know how really to answer that, because we look at things from a profit margin standpoint. Software has a gross margin of about 95%. So my very first one cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. The second one cost me nothing, basically. So our gross margins are very, very high. So the development cost was there. When you start to add in our SG&A and all of that stuff, we're throwing off a net of about 30 to 35.
Brian, before we let you go, we've got one final question for you. And that is, as a community, what can we do for you to help you in your business?
Here's what we would love. We would just love for you all to create introductions. Or if what we do could be helpful to your business, give us a call. Or if you know somebody that what we do could be helpful, create an introduction. And that's what we'd love. That's what we would like to have. So thank you all very much for the privilege of speaking today.
Thank you, Brian. If anybody's looking for a seat, want to come in from the back, feel free to come up front here. If you have a free seat next to you, maybe raise your hand and welcome a friend over. So we've got a few announcements today. On the back of your sheet, you can see a bunch of great events that are going on this week in Kansas City. So be sure to stop by and check those out. We do have one that isn't on the sheet. It's the Founders Live presentation. It's going to be next Wednesday right after 1 Million Cups. And Bill Reichert is going to be doing a presentation on how to portray the essence of your business in under a minute. So if that's something you struggle with, it's going to be a great class to learn how to get to the point and perfect that elevator pitch. Our next presenter is Harvey Baker. Harvey has created an app that helps you collect and keep all those important memories throughout life. They just won the 2014 Roots Tech Developers Challenge, so we're excited to have Harvey here, and he is one of our Passport members from St. Louis. So let's give him a round of applause and welcome him to Kansas City.
Thank you, Lance. Is that okay? Can everybody hear me? So my name is Harvey Baker. I'm the co-founder and president of Saving Memories Forever. Saving Memories Forever is all about building family connections by recording and sharing family stories. We have an iPhone and an Android app that runs on your iPhone or a tablet, And with that, you can record your stories anywhere and then upload them to our private website. Whenever we talk to people about our system, they always say something like this: I wish I had your system years ago. My grandmother was a great storyteller, and I would have loved to have had her stories because she died last year. And I would like to hear her voice again, and I would like my children and my children's children to hear her stories. There's a great longing in the United States and in the world, really, to know more about our families. So a recent USA Today poll put genealogy and family history as the #2 most popular hobby in the United States, and it's that way throughout the world. Saving Memories Forever provides a way in which seniors can record their stories and share them with the rest of their family. Parents can record the stories of their children as they grow up and then embarrass them at weddings and graduations and things like that. And genealogists can record stories to create a living legacy. So a little bit more about the system. It starts with the technology you have in the palm of your hand or in your desk or wherever it is. It has an interview structure with it. So you press a button, you answer a question that is a complete audio biography. Automatically uploads using your web connection to our private website, where you can add pictures and text files to each one of the stories. As Lance said, we were very pleased to win the 2014 Roots Tech Developers Challenge. Roots Tech is the largest genealogy and family history conference in the world, and we won the award for having the most innovative new product or service over the last year. So a little bit about how we got here. It all started about 25 years ago. My wife put together a family tree, which you see in the background here, that we have had hanging in our living room for the past 25 years. And once we put it together, I guess it's not too clear, is it? Once we put it together, we realized a couple of things. First of all, it was immediately out of date, but that's the way things are as people are born and people die and people get married, etc. But the second thing is we didn't know anything about the people on our family tree. We had no idea of what they hoped for, what their dreams were, what their favorite jokes are, what they like to do. We had no idea of that. And my wife and I talked to her about it for a little bit, and we said, you know, there's really no way to do that right now, because all of that information was text-based. It's all in both journals or diaries or letters, and there was no way to get it into the family tree. So we sort of put that on the back burner, and then the other precipitating thing that happened was my Uncle Sam died about 4 years ago, in 2010, and he died at 97. He had a lot of great stories, and his son, my cousin, was recording those stories. And as he was recording them, he was thinking about the legacy that his father was leaving. But as we listened to a couple of those stories, we had that aha moment, which is, this is the way you should understand the people who are no longer with us, or even the people who are with us. Through their stories, the stories they tell, through the things that they say, is the way you want to do it. So with that idea, we put together a couple of requirements, and Brian talked about making things simple. We wanted this to be very simple because we wanted it to be so that seniors and children could record stories. And then we wanted it to be private. Now, we are sort of like a private NPR StoryCorps. So those of you who are familiar with that know that you have to go to a StoryCorps studio to record, and then they're put up in the National Archives where anybody can listen to them. But we felt that there were some things that families wanted to share that they didn't want other people to know. And then we wanted it based on proven technology. So as an engineer, I started to look for things, and of course we all know the iPhone came out in 2007. That seems remarkable, but it came out in 2007. By 2010, there were 120,000 apps on the App Store, and this looked like the ability to have our recording studio and uploading in the palm of your hand. And that's what we did. So now, wherever you are, whenever you have your phone with you, or your tablet, or whatever remote device you have, you can upload family stories. You can record them at family reunions. You can record them at family gatherings. You can record them yourself. You can go wherever it is and upload them. So we started out producing something that was for life stories, for one to many. So I would record a story and share it with my family. I would record my uncle's story, and I would share it with the family. But then people came to us and they said, you know, we really like to be able to create something where people who aren't here can record stories and give them to an honoree, like for a retirement or a birthday or whatever it is that you might have, a wedding. So we were able to put that in with flexible design, and the partners in this case are critical. We did our outsourcing, somebody asked about outsourcing. We did our outsourcing to a large software firm in Springfield, Illinois, and they put it together in a way in which we could accommodate these additional requests. So that's also part of listening to your customers. Now, most of this is kind of esoteric, and we had this problem before. What happened? Okay. Well, I'll just go for it. So most of this is kind of esoteric, so you probably don't really understand, but the last thing that I had up here, which hasn't played, is a joke that my wife was telling, and I'll tell it because it's not up on the screen. But you know, she has this story that she tells, and she tells it sort of this way. You know, when you ask her about her favorite joke, which is one of the questions on her app, she says, my favorite joke, it's really the only joke I know. And then she sort of laughs. And she says, it goes like this: what did one strawberry say to the other? There's a brief pause, and then she says, if you weren't so fresh, we wouldn't be in this jam. And then she goes, ha, 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 ha. But the point of the story and the point of what we're talking about is the voice carries emotion, the voice triggers imagination, and the voice is what's used to really understand people. And the stories they tell are really the things that they're most interested in and the things they want you to know. So with that, I'm going to end. We're saving memories forever, sharing family memories one story at a time. I enjoy your ideas and your questions. Thank you very much.
All right, we've got a question up front.
Okay. Dave, can we get that off the screen?
If I can, I actually have two questions if I could.
Sure.
Your application, is it credential-based to where you could have a private and a public version of the stuff you're uploading?
It is only a private version. However, when I say that, so you have the ability to share your stories with whoever you want to share them with. If you decide you want to share them with somebody outside your family, that's up to you. But the stories are private to you.
The reason why I say that is I was involved in a project a few years ago where they're actually putting QR codes on tombstones
Yes.
for people to upload or to a website or content. I could see some definite application for this as far as taking people to a site to hear stories, hear videos, things like that about that.
Yeah,
So.
that's quite possible. We've talked to people who do that. So it's something that is in the works.
Got a question here in the back.
Sure.
So the slide back from that, where you said one to many, many to one, there was two other things there. You kind of went by it real quick. Can you go back one?
Doesn't look like I can do anything. Okay, let's see if he can fix it. So, so you want me to clarify the other things that were on there?
Yes.
So the first thing is, this is really an audio engine. It's something I didn't actually talk about. But so you can do a lot of things with this. People have come to us and said, you know, insurance agents do call notes. And so what they do is when they have a call with a customer, they take in all the information, then they write it all up, or they send it out to a transcriber who writes it all up and puts it in a form that they, the next time, can get out of their files. So it's an audio engine that could do things like that. So that was the bottom one. And then okay, go to, okay. So then the one up from that was the audio diary. So people came to us and they said, we'd like to have the ability to have a diary that we can just talk through rather than writing it all down. And then that wasn't it. Okay, I'm not hopeful this is actually gonna work. And then people came to us and they said, we want to be able to commemorate a celebration. So let me give you an example. So there's a retirement that happens and you send out an announcement to 300 people and 200 of them say, hey, I can't be there. So those 200 people can download our app, they can record a story about that person, and they can give the stories to that person of those things that are recorded. They can do it anywhere and any way they want and any time they want. So the idea here is that you can create all of these different celebrations or different, we also have a military thing where military people can come together and do the same kind of thing. So wherever you are, you can record and then upload, and one person can get that information at the end. So I don't know if that explains what the slide was, but okay, thanks.
Question to your right.
Just curious, do you have the ability to print out a book to give along with, knowing that it won't have all the pieces, voice, etc.?
Mm-hmm. We have the capability of downloading all the stories that you have put into the system to a CD or DVD. So you can do that. We don't have the capability of transcribing, but it's an easy capability. From there, you just send it off to a transcription agency. They do it for you.
Harvey, you've got a question to your left.
Okay.
So first off, very cool. I already downloaded your app.
That's what I figured people would be doing during
And
my presentation.
Hey, I noticed it was free.
It's a freemium.
So how do you guys make money?
So it's a freemium. You get limited capability with the free version of it. You get to try it and see what you think about it. And then the price of it is, now Brian was talking about $40 a month. Ours is $40 a year. It's not $40 a month or $3.99 a month. And for that, you can record unlimited stories, unlimited people, put unlimited text files, unlimited pictures with it, and share it with an unlimited number of people. Those are all the things that in the free version aren't unlimited. So it's a freemium.
Question in the back.
Sure.
So I understood your costs really clearly. I visited this site last night, but I was confused. In your user agreement, there was a section that talked about if I fail to pay my $3.99 a month, then I lose the memories. Can you just clarify that for me? I was just confused. Thanks.
You don't lose the memories. If I've written it that way, that's a problem, and I'll go back and try to fix that. What happens is you revert back to the free portion of the program. So in the free portion, you can record 2 people, unlimited stories. You have some limitations on the way in which they can be listened to, and you have some limitations on whether you can see the pictures and text files that are part of it. But none of the stories go off our system. So there are 2 things. The first one is, before that happens, if you really want to get off the system, you download all your stories to a CD or DVD. It's very easy to do. So as long as you're a paying customer, you can do that easily. Secondly, if that comes up and there's a problem, you pay the $3.99 for another month and everything restores. None of the stories go off the system. I wanted to make sure there were people who were recording stories for people who are no longer with us, and so they recorded the stories. They never can record them again. So we wanted to make sure that none of the stories went off the system. I also wanted to make sure that if somebody deleted something that they really wanted, that it wasn't really gone. So we keep all the stories on the system.
Harvey, we got a question to your left.
Can you talk to us about your user acquisition, kind of from where you got started and how much effort, time, and cost it takes you to actually onboard people and how long they stick around?
Okay. So you're talking about from the time at which we present like to this and the time at which he downloads it? So it took about 6 seconds. No, I'm just being, we go after people in a variety of different ways. We are dealing with some of the largest genealogical sites in the country, Ancestry.com, Family Search, Find My Past. All these people we're talking to. We haven't actually done anything with them, but we're talking to them, so we're trying to get to people that way. We also have an affiliate program where people who are genealogists in the area who want to use our system can do that for free, and then they end up selling it to others, so we have that, and then we go one-to-one. So that was a long answer to your question. So the sales cycle is different for each one of those. As far as retention goes, once people put stories on our system, they don't ever want to let them go. You'll never tell that story the same way again. So they're never going to want to let them go. So far we've had very few people come off the system. So retention is very high. Did that answer your question, or you still look puzzled? Okay. We have 2,500 people who are currently on the system, and that's growing at about 100 a week. So it's we're hoping this is going to help more than that. And of those 2,500, we have lost very few. It's hard to know because the people that are on the system, if they don't record stories, have you lost them, or are they still there? As long as they're paying or they're free, they're still there to us. So we don't really have any people that are off the system.
Question in the center.
Sure.
So if I was told that my great uncle had recorded his stories on an 8-track, I'd say, what is that? But do you guys have plans to, what are you going to do to keep up with the technology in the future? How are you going to transition when we're like, what's an iPhone? And people laugh at the fact that we had those.
Okay, let's start with your 8-track thing. You can also upload audio directly from your computer to the system. You don't have to go through your phone or your tablet. It's just much easier to do it. But once you're up on the system, you can send as much data as you want. You can upload as many stories as you want to the system itself directly. So how are we keeping up with the system? Well, basically, audio is one of those things that hasn't changed in a long time. The fact that the iPhone or the Android devices are all platforms for the software, we'll just keep the software going. But as far as the recording, MP3s appear to be the standard for the future. Nobody can come up with so far, a standard that is different than that has more fidelity than that. So it's pretty much de facto, whereas you see video standards changing every couple of years, you don't see audio standards changing very much. And it's because of the psychoacoustics of sound and that sort of stuff where you really can't get more out of it anymore. So if MP3s become, I don't know, some other audio format, there will be conversion programs because there's so many MP3s out there that there has to be some way to get them to the new standard, and we'll just convert.
Harvey, I got a question to your left.
You mentioned that the content never really goes away and you keep it on a server. Could you talk to us about the intellectual property rights, who owns that content and what can be done with it?
It is owned by the people who record the stories. We have in our system a story keeper. That's the person who owns the account. Okay, and so a story keeper can be a storyteller. They're the people who actually do stories, but they can also record others. The story keeper is the intellectual property owner of all of the stories. Everything is private, only to them.
Got a question here in front.
So just taking a brief look at the marketplace, this is a pretty fragmented area. There's lots of different companies that do something similar to this, and they have different features. What is, from a brand perspective, your unique selling proposition that will allow consumers to differentiate this application from all of the other applications that do something similar?
Okay, so when you say the marketplace, first of all, the marketplace is big. Some people have estimated the number of people interested in family history is around 100 million people in the United States, and you can use our system overseas as long as you can read English, you can record your stories in any language. But there isn't anybody else other than NPR StoryCorps who comes right at where we are. So the answer to your question is, we have a system that makes it extremely easy to record, upload, and then find the stories. So our system is such that you can duplicate this by picking up a piece here and picking up a piece here and picking up a piece there, but you can't find a whole system that will do what we do. And I guess the other thing is that the storage and retrieval is one thing that's interesting. My cousin recorded my uncle's stories and had hundreds of hours of stories, and I said we listened to a couple. We're never going to listen to all of them because there's no way to get to them. So we use our questions as the story indexing. So every story is indexed by person, then by category, which is usually ages, like childhood, early adult, etc. And then the question, like where and when were you born? And then we have question numbers that are beyond that. So you can get to, when I was a child, what did I think about my parents? Or what were my thoughts about my parents? You can get to that easily on our system. You can't get to that easily in any other way.
Harvey, got a question up front for you. Oh, you're good? All right, got one right back here.
You've probably answered this already, but let's go back, and you have great photographs of your grandmother, and you have journals, and you have letters of her to her husband and World War I artifacts and blah, blah, blah. So you load all of those in. Can you search in a chronological order? Can you just do a search of your grandmother and all of her correspondence?
Okay, we are audio-based with pictures and text files attached. So the first part of that is, if in chronology, you can set up your grandmother as a story keeper, storyteller in our system, and then all of her stories will be listed there. And then if you want to attach pictures and text files, you need to record something about them and then attach them. And then you can get them in chronological order. Now, for that, you're going to have to archive that stuff in some way digitally anyway, meaning if you have correspondence or you have pictures that are from that time, you're going to need to digitize them because they fade. That's the issue that you have. And when you're collecting all of these text documents, the other thing that happens is you lose them. We've moved from house to house to house, and I don't know how many things we've lost that are text-based. So things need to be digital. Is the key to it. So the answer is yes, you could do that, but we start with a story and then we attach pictures and text files. So if you wanted to do that, that's the way you would do it. Now, one more thing, not only do we use the file structure the way I talked about, but we also have the ability to tag. So if you wanted to tag a story with a particular content, you could tag it and then search for that tag. So in other words, if your grandmother's wedding picture was there, and you recorded a short story about what you knew about your grandmother's wedding, then you could tag that as grandmother's wedding, and when you went in, you could put in grandmother's wedding, it would come up. That particular one would come up. So let me just go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead. The tagging is user-defined, but the indexing structure starts with storyteller, category, question, and then story number. So that's the way the system is set up. But then in addition to that, there's another way to get at everything, which is through the user-defined tags.
Got another question here on your right.
Hi. So both of our presenters today were apps, and thousands of apps are popping up all the time. And something I think neither of you covered was, how do you drive people to your apps in the App Store? So for someone who isn't familiar like me, is it like Google where you have SEO, SEM opportunities and you're flagging keywords and trying to drive traffic? Are they flagging you if you're using a word that isn't applicable to your app, like you're trying to own banana and they're going, you're not a banana? How does something like that work on your end?
Okay, so the App Store itself has SEO as part of it. So if you went in and you put in memories, if you put in life stories, I'm not sure what the SEOs are. I've forgotten. We put them up originally. The Apple Store has some very tight constraints on what they will let you put up. So it has to be applicable to your app. The Android store is the Google Play Store is a lot less tight on that. But so within the stores itself, you can get to us through a variety of different searches. There is SEO, but that's not the way people normally get to the app. Normally they hear about us in something like this, or they read some of our publications, or they go to our Facebook page, or they go to our Twitter account, and they find us. And then they download us from the App Store. It's not normal that people go to the App Store and say, I wonder what this is. So it's not usual that happens. So does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, Brian talked about, when he was talking, he talked about some of the things that don't work. And that's one of the things, there are a lot of social media things that don't seem to drive customers. They're nice content, but they don't seem to drive customers. Unless you're featured on the iTunes or Google Play Store, you don't really drive people through the system. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about a particular kind of content. So if you've got a game, people will search games. So there's other content that does drive that way, but not content like this.
Question, you're right.
I'm curious, what % of your users are paid, and then what do you do to incent the freemiums to pay?
Well, first of all, the incentive is the fact they can use the full system. So it's not, there's not an additional incentive. We turn out story prompts and things like that on a regular basis so that people get into the habit of recording story. The percentage of paid right now is very small. I won't give you a number, but it's very small. We are growing.
I have a question.
Okay.
So what are your total user downloads currently, and I know you said right now word of mouth is your best referral source. Do you have any other marketing strategies for the future?
Well, we have several marketing strategies that I alluded to before. One is going to the big genealogical companies and working with them to integrate our system into their websites and everything else. The next thing is we do an affiliate structure where we go to people and we say the people who are in the genealogy marketplace and give presentations, and we set up a way in which they can sell our product and get something from it, and then distribute it that way. And then we go after individuals through this kind of thing and word of mouth. So those are the three kinds of ways that we do it. I forgot the first question. Oh, how many?
Downloads of your
Okay,
app
so
currently?
on the app stores, we're in the 8,000 range right now of downloads.
Okay, we have another question in the center.
It just kind of went along with what she was saying as far as marketing. I'm a mother of 3, so I have no memory. It's gone. And I also have, speaking of memory, I have an aging grandfather who has early onset Alzheimer's. And so I'm intrigued, and I love your idea. What I would like to say is to reach out to people like me who don't have time for genealogy conferences or actually forget that word exists. I would say maybe get into relationship with hospitals, because when you have a baby, you get a lot of crap in a bag. And so
Literally and
eventually when you're sitting around nursing, you get to read the crap. And I would think a card with your QR code on it and some information about recording the memories of the hospital stay and their birth, and getting them involved. And on the flip side, when somebody is ill, they're thinking about their life and reflecting, and maybe they would look at some information at a hospital while they're there and think, you know, I need to leave something for my family to remember my stories. Because I was just thinking last week about how I needed something like this because my grandpa told me the story of his birth. And I thought, gosh, I have 2 kids running around and you're telling me the story and there's no way I'm going to remember it. And so I would have loved to have known about this before today. So just a thought, maybe reaching out to local hospitals or nursing homes.
Okay, great. Great. I will say there is some thought that we could use our system for in the Alzheimer's arena and like this. So my father had Alzheimer's and he lived close to us. So we were going over every other day and we were talking to him, and eventually we ran out of things to say because, you know, all he would say is, yep, he just nod his head. So what we were thinking was if he had recorded his stories, and he traveled around the world, he was a professor, if he had recorded his stories, we would have been able to listen to some of those stories and then walk into him and say, Dad, do you remember when you went to the Japanese parliament and how you did this and how you did that? And it maybe would not help him. I don't know if it would or not, but it would have helped us. We would have had something we could talk about, and it would have made the visits easier. So that's one thing. And then we have going to hospice providers, because hospice actually asks their clients whether they want to record, whether they want to write down the stories of their lives. Unfortunately, we run into some HIPAA regulations there that stopped us dead. Your idea about newborns in hospitals is a good one. We'll take a look at that.
Thank you, Harvey, for your presentation. Last question for you. How as a community can we help you?
Sure. Well, first of all, like this gentleman over here, you could download our app. And then once you've downloaded our app and used it a little bit, you could review it. That'd be nice. Of course, you could be customers of ours. We are looking for people who are interested in this field to find other ideas on how to use what we're doing. So if you have some other ideas, or I said this field, it doesn't have to be this field. You have other ideas where an audio engine that can talk from one to many and many to one would be useful, and you say, wow, how would that be? Well, I was thinking, I come from a corporate background, so I was thinking that, I hold staff meetings, and staff meetings are a brilliant waste of time. And so what I could have done with this system is I could have had all of my people record their activity reports, not write them down, not type them, not sit in a meeting. They could have done that wherever they are. I could have reviewed them and put out what I thought was the response. And all this could be done through this engine, this audio engine. So there are other ways to use it. So And then just word of mouth. You've heard about it. Hopefully you'll tell somebody else about it, and they'll sign up also.
Great, thanks, Harvey. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, if you'd like to talk to Harvey or any of the 4D folks, yep, we're all down here. Feel free to come after and mingle, and that's the end. We don't have anything more. Have a good one.